back with another episode of Going Live with the MC. I'm your host, MC Reef, and today, y'all know what I'm about to say. We back with another dope interview. Yeah, man. So I just realized that we cracked 30 episodes. So this would be episode 31. Tomorrow's Halloween, so perfect timing. Shout out to everybody that's been tuning in since day one. Shout out to everybody that engages with the guest and myself. And just shout out to everyone that's been a part of this, going forward. Um, yeah, it's been a blessing. I've been excited to meet a lot of dope people in my life, and it's been great, having a conversation with them and helping them share their talents with the world. Their stories, their journeys, their experiences. It's all been a blessing, and I'm gonna keep doing it. So, without further ado, I'm gonna introduce this new guest, Donat from One Love, One Mic. Let's get him on the show. What's up, my brother?
Big bro,
Peace.
love. How you
How you
feeling?
feeling? Everything is good, man. I'm great today, man. I feel good. Well rested.
God is good. Yeah, that's the feeling.
That's a fact. That's a fact. How you feeling, man?
Uh, good man. I'm actually on the same vibe. Like I woke up today having feeling rested. Which then like puts me in a situation where it's like, all right, what's the next move?
Mm. I feel that. I feel that. I feel that. Well, thanks for coming by. Giving me some of your time so we can chop it up and expose ourselves to the world in the best way.
Yeah, I'm on.
Uh, yeah. So, I usually like to start it off with something simple, and then I dive into the. It's nothing crazy, but then I dive into the actual questions that that really perspective. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, how did you start your poetry journey? What was the ultimate thing that got you interested?
I feel like I think we all know certain things follow us throughout our lives. Like, there'll be instances where this might have happened at the age of 7, and then, all of a sudden you did it again while you were in college, and then uh, someone else who's been in your life for that long amount of time will point out to you like, well, nigga, if you're trying to figure out what you're trying to do with your life, look at the one thing you've always been doing. Whether it be voluntary, like consciously or unconsciously. Uh, so this year and a half, I've kind of just dedicated to wanting to become a full time poet, like a student of what this art really requires of someone. Um, and it's been a blessing. Like it's truly been a blessing. I've done things that I didn't know were possible, and it's really based on my faith too. Like just giving into things wholeheartedly, um, and letting God do with me what I always thought was meant.
That's dope. That's actually dope, man. So how long have you? I know you said the past year and a half you started coming out publicly, but how long before that did you actually, start?
Um, well, I remember I was learning English at the age of 7, and I had just got to the country, and my English teacher would she'd give us these journals, and she'll prompt us to write. So I remember learning English in that way, and then time happens, you get into other things, and then when I went to college, I went to a predominantly white college, and it was all the way upstate, like by Rochester, so like 8 hours away from New York. And I'm like, ain't shit here for niggas like me. So I did everything and anything possible to get off campus. And I remember there was a poetry team, and they were like, "Yo, we travel to other universities," and that was my selling point. I didn't even care. I was like, "What I got to do? Let me know. I'll make it happen." And I ended up going to some college events, universities, and national competitions, and that I really gravitated towards the fact that there were people that looked like me having similar experiences. So sporadically, like I'll say between 7 and 8, and then like 18 and 20, I did poetry to me.
Okay, okay, okay. That's pretty dope. Um, so you said that you was learning to speak English. Well,
Yeah.
you So, what was you speaking originally? I mean, I think I know the answer to that, but
Spanish, Sasa, Espanol. You know what I'm saying?
you know, I always said it too when I saw you. I said, "Yo, this dude looks a little Spanish." And then I started like being around you more, and you started saying certain things, and I'm like, "Yeah, he's definitely
Yeah,
Spanish."
I be my when I forgetting, I'm like, oh shit, wait, there's a whole, but it's
Nah,
definitely
that's dope.
Spanish.
That's dope, man. I'm not gonna lie. I really want to, actually put the time in to learn a new language.
Right.
I think that really messes with people's heads when they see someone speak a different language.
I actually, I love the fact that people can't tell the difference. Like walking into the barbershop and then being like, I'm not gonna say no Spanish. I'm gonna see how these niggas treat me. I just see if I can fuck because it be there's a whole underlining world of like being identifying as black and being Latino that it rubs people the wrong way for some reason, and it's so much more liberating because the experience is, like the cop don't know the difference between whether I speak Spanish or not, and
Mm,
that's always been my thing apart. But it's like who who
I
truly,
feel that.
yeah.
So you said you need to take time to understand that this was your calling,
Mhm.
and you decided to come out publicly. How did how did the world receive you when you first started coming out publicly? Was it something that you welcomed, or was it something that she was like, man, like like how did that go for you?
Um, it's in two folds, right? Because there's the world of, I guess, the community of poetry that lives in New York and kind of grows in New York City. But there's also like the people look from the outside looking in. So I've been blessed with opportunities of being around the community that's very supportive, very inspiring. Um, a lot a lot of what I did coming in was take the time to listen. So I would attend as many events as I could. At the time, I didn't have a job, so I was like chilling, but I had enough to kind of like be able to afford to like jump around to all these different spaces and get as much as I could.
Mm,
Um, and that was beautiful because when you I believe that spoken word, at least for me as an art form, is like 60% listening and the other 40% is like performance. So being able to like invest in these communities and be a part of them as an audience member was what made like these kind of people. I met them through their poetry, and then I later invested in deeper conversations about their work. So that helped me find an anchor in which like I could use to kind of like navigate.
mm,
But the blessing outside of poetry was that I was introduced to different spaces. I've been able to travel. I've been able to hit stages and go to places that I was like I ain't never used my passport before, like
mm,
besides going to Dominican Republic. It's also like just this idea of like you're telling somebody else's story through your words, and I didn't realize the impact that could have on other people. Um, how much permission we are all waiting for in order to feel something or experience it or name it. Um, so that's always been a good, like the way people receive my work has always reinformed or reaffirmed like, okay, you are doing the right thing.
mm. I like that answer. Because a lot of people when they go public with their work, it doesn't matter what they're doing, poetry, construction,
Right,
whatever.
right,
You
right.
know, when they decide to tell the world that they did this, they tend to listen to the world a little too much. And granted, like you said, 60% is listening. It's like a lot of times you kind of got to go with that 40%,
Right.
And I say that because people will hear, let's just say they'll have one bad performance and that's just it for them, or they have a whole different approach to the game and they don't want to go public, or they don't want to interact with people at shows, or it just creates a snowball effect of reasons why they're holding themselves back. And I'm glad that you took that from when you first started going public and decided to carry on with it? Because a lot of us, I was actually just having this conversation, a lot of us miss out on the blessings because we're focused on the sins.
Ooh, ooh.
Yeah, you feel me? So we always looking down and just like, ah man, this didn't work out for me right now, and I'm not gonna. And it's just like, man, what about the people in the crowd that actually clapped for you? What about the people that actually walked up to you and said, "Great job"? Like, you know what I'm saying? I don't like a lot of times. I don't think people are just like supporting just because they're there. I think they actually enjoy some of the work.
Right, 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 right.
And
I was talking to a homie the other day about this idea of, am I still a poet if no one claps? And it's like
Mhm.
I have to commit to the idea of something like what performer's worst nightmare, right? So it's like you get up there, you do something, and you're waiting for that validation, and it's like, is that why you do it? Like, because it's to me, it's like it's the change and the shift that happens within me, having said these things out loud, so I can liberate myself from these thoughts, from these fears, this trauma, so I can learn how to make room for more. So once I perform something, I want to leave it on stage and be able to walk off feeling like, all right, cool. Now I have a little more room for something else in life, something that God is trying to send me. Um, but the idea of being discouraged at because you aren't immediately validated, definitely a fear we all deal with, but um, I think it comes from an illusion of control, and it's just that's not what faith is about, right? So
Nah, that's facts. And I learned that the hard way. I think the first time I performed, I had crazy stage fright. But
yeah,
the only thing I was thinking in that moment was, I gotta try it again.
ooh,
Like, cause like I feel like I did okay. I did skip over a few lines. I think I bombed it on one of the songs because my brother-in-law was supposed to be there with me to perform the song, and I couldn't remember his lyrics. And this was my first time performing, so I thought, I was under the pressure that I had to perform the entire song, including his verse.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm on stage struggling to remember his verse. I'm like, damn, I listened to this song a million times and now I can't get it right. So it was like, yeah. But I was like, once I got off the stage, I think like only, yeah, 5 people came out to see me, which was also a big thing for me because no one knew that I was doing music. You know what I'm saying? Like it was hard for me to like be like, yo guys, I make music now. And people like, oh, okay, cool, let's go
yeah,
support.
yeah,
So just to have 5 people pop out for me, I was like, yo, this is actually dope. You know what? I'm gonna do this again. I messed up this time, but I'm gonna try again, So um I definitely appreciate the people that continuously keep going.
yeah.
And to segue into the next question or part of the conversation, not
Uh-huh.
only did you keep going with performing, you in turn decided to invest and create your own community. One Love, One
Yeah,
Mic. Um, First off, I got to give you your flowers for that.
mhm.
Um, I don't even know how I discovered you. To be actually, no, no, no. You invited me because I,
Yeah,
I thought I saw it online somewhere. But you actually invited me when we met.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but upon walking into there and seeing everything, like how it operates, I was like, okay, hey, I could get behind this. This is something that's really, really dope. You have a lot of people that show up, on a monthly basis. Um, Going back to the 60/40 thing, the people there, 9 times out of 10, you don't really got to tell them to quiet down or anything like that. They understand what's really going on. It's only like, I guess, the newcomers who are coming from those shows with no organization. You feel me? Those are the ones you got to keep in check. But it's not too many of those. Everybody walks in the spot, they read the room, and they know what's going on automatically. And then you jump on stage and you have like this welcoming aura, like everything is just like, yo, welcome to Mikasa, go chill out, kick your feet back. Um, so talk about that. What was your inspiration behind building this community?
um, yeah, yeah. I think you hit it on the nail. I think it was basically about giving the people uptown the same resources and spaces that they can find in other locations. It was actually inspired by because I was going to open mics, but then I went to the Wow event, which is all women's orators open mic that's held at the New Yorican, and La Bruja was hosting it. And when I saw the way women communicate around the support they give each other, how that competitive aspect is almost thrown out the window, and people lean into each other's poetry, experiences. Um, and that alone kind of inspired me, like, oh, this is what I remember from college poetry. So I ran uptown and I was like, let me try to see if we could do this for us up here. But at the end of the day, it would be a room if you weren't in it. So everything that happens in that room is not, it's not of my creation. It really is a reflection of each person and what they need in that moment. Um, the opportunity to perform, the opportunity to be heard, to be seen, um, all that is something we all experience. I know that you've come and blessed the mic so many times, and that I think people have been inspired. And I think the consistency of like hearing your own story in so many different ways,
Hmm.
it really helps you not feel alone. So that's pretty much it. Like, really, I take this amount of credit when it comes to the space because it's really all about what people do for one another, how they create outside of the group. But at the end of the day, I think for me, it's like when you walk through those doors, I think we're all here to meet each other's spirits, not who you know, how you know them. I care not for any of those things. I care who you are in this space and how you make other people feel while in it. So shout outs to the whole community because it's less about me and all about them.
Hmm. I mean, you definitely don't downplay your involvement, But I get where you're going with this 100%. It's definitely dope that you have a community behind you, and not to say you didn't have to do a lot of work, but you took the right steps.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because I'm a firm believer in work smarter, not harder. And if you don't have to go through all this extra stuff just to get people to be on your side, then more power to you. And I think that's important because even I myself, I struggle with finding people to see the vision.
right.
Like a lot of actually when I started traveling like international, a lot of people used to ask me, "Are you famous?" Like that used to be one of their first questions they would ask me, and I would be like, "Damn, if I was," like. But then it started to make me think a little deeper because what people confuse with fame is
Ooh,
success, right?
right.
So
Good point.
a lot of these people were looking for the success story behind it. They were wondering how I ended up in another country. So in their minds, they're thinking, I got this whole operation behind me and I'm able to do things like this on a regular basis. But then once I started sharing to people that, yo, I just came out here on my own free will, they're like, oh, for real?
Yeah,
Like, but it's like sometimes you got to create the vision so well,
yeah,
that people fall into it.
right,
And I think that's exactly what you did with this community. Like you said, you provided what people wanted in the moment. And it's a lifelong thing, by the way, So even though
yeah,
it sounds temporary, even though it sounds like it's just a one-time thing, a lot of these people keep on coming back to your shows simply because they like the way it makes them feel.
right. I think
So
is the most important thing. I think like uh the idea that who's deserving, like when you talk about fame and success, like there's the illusion of like everybody knows me, but then there's like the reality of like how many people hear you. So it's like I don't care to compliment the idea of you on stage. Like I tend to be the kind of person that leans into like how much how much did it take you to get from your house to that stage, and how much to write the things you wrote and then be brave enough to perform it in front of all these people. I think it's important. And a lot of people might have asked you those questions too, just based on the fact that they wanted what you had, but weren't willing to exactly do the work you did to get there. And
Part.
that illusion where it's like you're successful, um, but they have no idea. I'd rather be in a room with five people that came out to
Hmm.
listen, um, than be in a room of 1,000 people who don't ever necessarily want to dig deeper into themselves and follow me into my own journey.
Hmm.
Um, so like shout out to you because like all of the results of what you've done is based on what you've done for yourself.
Nah, I appreciate that 100%, man. Thank you. Um, hold on one second. Want to make sure my connection is good. All right. Um, you mentioned vulnerability and something that I feel like a lot of people, whether they're consumers or creators themselves, they don't understand. We go through a lot in a day before we get to the stage. So
Yeah.
how does that work for you? Like how often are you, like, let's just say, for lack of a better word, how often are you in a rut and you feel like you gotta, because you throwing one love, one mic today, you gotta pop out on your best? How does that work for you? Because I feel like that's even bigger than stepping on stage. You're, again, presenting for a community. So how do you wake up every day, or every month rather, and execute this?
Good question. Um, I think I think when curating a space, I've realized that artists need to be held, right? And there's a lot of intangible things happening between fear, um, anxiety, this idea of who's deserving or not. And I would like to think that I come into the space to be of service. Um, and often, and most not, I also want to reflect to them that this fear of theirs isn't one they should be experiencing alone. It is something that all of us experience. And the sooner we say these things out loud, the sooner we start to realize that there is a community around us that's willing to support and fight this battle with us. Um, yeah, and I credit really the community for what it does for each other. Um, I feel like it's not so much that I create something; it's almost like I just I happen to find a space that could house it. Um, so I think they continue to do for each other what they thought they could only do alone. Um, but showing up for me personally, sometimes it is it because, like you said, I'm dealing with living in New York City and trying to be a working artist. Um, so had to struggle with this idea of like, do I run things on my personality or do I run things on principle? And that keeps me in check. That keeps me recognizing that how I feel personally about something isn't as important as how I want the space to do for others. It's been hard. It's been hard to balance. It was free for almost 2 years, and the overhead, the cost of it, the things I have to do, how many jobs I have to have, is it really challenges the organizer. Um, but I used to go home after the event and feel like, look at all these people say this is their first time doing this. Um, Look at how many ways people hug themselves. I used to look out into the crowd and watch people perform and see the rest of the audience members kind of lean into what they were saying. Um, and it'd be those little things that make me recognize, like, oh shit, you're doing good. And good might not always necessarily make you feel great, but it is good nonetheless.
That's dope. That's dope, man. Thank you for sharing that. Yo, it's crazy you say that too, because I would say, Okay, I'm low key lying a little bit, but I would say, stepping into your platform was one of the first times that I've actually began to appreciate intimate settings.
Copy.
I say I'm lying because it actually started in London.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I started going to poetry events out there, and yeah, I mean, honestly, only reason why I say it was my first time around you because, like in London, it was a little bit competitive to a degree.
Yeah.
You know, it was again, me being outside and the people in that country not having to drive. So it was a lot of times where, went a little back and forth, or I had to endure some snarky remarks from people who just don't be outside. They don't got to drive. So, um, being at your event, I got to just walk in there. No one knew who I was. I didn't feel no pressure. Like, I just sat down, I took my time, and then when I went up there, I didn't even care if it was like 4 minutes or 40 minutes. I just felt like, okay, all eyes are on me. No one's talking. Everyone looks interested. Let's go. And this is what like you said, this is what I see from everybody. They're up there and they're comfortable. They're not even thinking too much about messing up. They're not like, oh, well, I just wrote this today, so bear with me. Like, it's none of that. Everyone is just on go mode. So that's beautiful, man. For real, for real. That's really beautiful.
And they
And
themselves, like honestly, I can't take credit. I feel honored that they to help them with that process. That's about it.
nah, that's really sick, man. Um, also, you mentioned that you kept it free for almost 2 years. What did that look like for you? You said you had to work a lot of jobs and stuff like that. So you were independently funding this year on your own. Like you were renting out Savannah and
Yeah,
yo,
yeah,
nah, that's sick. And you were paying your featured artists.
yeah. So
Yo, that had to take a toll on you,
it
man.
was even like the thing is like I didn't want to negotiate quality of something with a budget. Like I don't know. Like I guess it's the people pleaser in me. But the
So
idea
that.
of working is I was bartending at the time, so it's like I just feel like everyone was deserving of space every in order to be- so everything from like adding the band, having a host, having a DJ. Silvana blessed me with the space because I worked for them for a lot of my youth as a bartender and as a manager.
Okay.
So it didn't take much for me to get the space. What definitely rocked the boat was like, how do I? Because they're thinking about the economics of their business,
Right.
how I can monetize, right? But I'm also trying to protect my community by
Mm-hmm.
max for a dollar. Like, so there was a lot of me going back and forth, and then really just trying to sell them on the experience that people were having. Um, and what that looked like for me was like, and this is why I understand now why organizers deserve a little more love and support. It's the idea you don't know how many conversations happen behind those doors, and it's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of event things, even if it's like a small gesture. It's because they what happens when the well runs dry.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Village goes thirsty. So it takes a lot of work to be able to put something together. Um, and then when I started charging recently in September, um, a lot of the debacle for me was like, is this have I invested enough in this community that they feel like showing up for themselves and keeping this alive? And I was surprised that it didn't thing. Like they were like, nah, we still gonna be in here. We still gonna love each other, and we're gonna do our best. There were people who volunteered to buy tickets for other people. Big shout outs to Chris in Brooklyn. Like there was he bought 10 tickets for 10 people, gave them away. The Hood School open mic ran by X. They bought 5 tickets, gave them away. So there was a lot of that. There's still a lot of that right now. At the end of the day, I'm still trying to get back to keeping it free. But I eventually want this to be less about like what I'm doing and more about like I want to give it to the next generation and be like, what do you want to do with this?
Mm.
But I want to give it to them in kind of situation where it's sustainable, not as overwhelming as it was for me.
That's sick, man. That's sick. That's a great direction, honestly, because a lot of people have and are still creating things and just running with the formula that's working for somebody else. You know, uh, to even double back on the whole intimate platform situation. You know, I just recently did a show, I want to say last week. I wasn't supposed to be there, you know what I'm saying? One of my friends, he had a slot and he asked me to come out and perform a song with him. You know, so that was the reason why I went. Um, Once I found out the platform that he was under, I lost all interest. You know, like I've been there before and they just don't care about the artists, you know, and it's for me, I don't mind paying to perform. And this was also a debacle, you know, when I was part of a collective with, ironically, this same exact
Yeah,
artist. It was the thing about I'm good, I'm nice, I don't need to pay to perform. It was that kind of thing. And
yeah,
then there's a promoter side where they're like, "Oh, you're good. Well, you got to put your money where your mouth is. You got to invest in yourself. So pay this price." And it's just like, whoa, this is one messed up position to be in, you know, like to really sit here and conflict with yourself over being good enough to start earning the money for what you're doing, or just saying, you know what, I got enough hype, so you should be grateful I'm in your space, kind of thing. And ultimately, it never works out in those settings. You know, I've realized how disturbed I've been. Like, even going back to Day Summit festival. It's a 10-day festival that happens in New York every year.
yeah, yeah,
Um, I think this year I finally decided to never go again.
yeah.
Well, to never perform as an artist again. You know, I do want to be a part of the panel
Yeah.
next year, so I can start talking about some of this stuff. Yeah, I'm definitely one of those people. I'll bring the company down from the inside, and you know, it's not even a bad thing. It's really that, you know, if a lot of people don't understand certain things, I would love to be the one to present it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm big on that, 100%. You
Yeah.
know, and a lot of people don't really like it, but hey, if someone don't say it, who is? You know, it's gonna keep on going around in a cycle, and everything's gonna keep on, you know, diluting itself, and then no one's gonna want to, you know, come out and present their art with the world anymore because we don't have any healthy spaces. So I think that's a big deal for me. You know, and it should be for every other creative. You know, you should always want to be in a healthy space where people support you willingly. It's not a force, and you ain't got to break the bank to do it. You know, that's pretty much it for me. That's it, really. Honestly, I don't really require too much when I perform. You know, just respect and the love. That's it. Um,
I hear you.
so I know we talked a while ago about let me not say a while. It sounds like a long time. I know we talked recently about grant funding and stuff like that. This is something that I've actually took interest in a while ago, and I realized that it's something that a lot of us don't know about. So, do you care to share?
Yeah. So like I was put on by a good friend at the time, Cap, like about this thing called Poets and Writers. And it's a
Mhm.
uh and what happens is they alleviate the cost of any group of people or show the artist by providing sorry, by providing the artist with payment. So what happens is that you as an or like I guess as an organization apply for the artist for the grant, and it's pretty easy. It's pretty um, and they would pay the artist directly, um, and that's been a blessing because it's almost to say when I found out about it, I realized that people have who have been doing this longer than me didn't even know about it. Like, and like I've seen the kind of shit that people sign up for. How is it that
Right.
they're doing the work and having the impact aren't making the aren't making the kind of moves that would allow us to afford more.
Right.
So was anybody organizing to apply. There is no requirements, honestly. I think the only requirement for the artist is that they would have had to like have already published something,
Mhm.
have been covered in some journal, or and that the organization is doing work, um, which is easy enough to prove with social media, and you see what people share, what they look at. Um, but it's pretty flexible. I recommend everyone to do it. It's called the Poets and Writers Grant. I think it's PW .org, if I'm not mistaken. But it's a resource worth tapping into. And I anybody I run into, I even have like a little note that I save on my phone and
Mm.
starter kit, and I just send it to people right away.
That's dope. That's dope. That's dope, man. And it's great that you're sharing this information with people. There's a lot of gatekeepers out there, man. They figure out the key and they don't want to share it with nobody. And it's like, okay, I get it. Sometimes some people aren't worth that information, because I learned a long time ago, you can learn everything in the world. It's what you do with it that matters. So
The
um,
thing,
a lot of us be having information and don't do nothing with it.
right? And that's the thing. That's like making awareness, creating awareness is one thing. Doing the work for someone else is completely different. So it's like I'm gonna give you what I know I use, and if you have any questions to follow up, I'm happy to answer them. I still want to tap into larger grants. And I know you put me on to the idea of like, well, you need to get an LLC. You need to be able to like, in some ways, find some certification or find a DBA of some type to be able to organize myself more consistently when presenting to larger scopes.
Hmm.
But um, those are things that I got to work on. But the main thing that I realized about organizing is that I can't do it alone. There needs to be a team. There needs to be like people, and in that process, I think that I because it's helped me grow.
You skipped out on that last part, my
No,
bad.
it's just being able to come into resources and sharing them with multiple people, other organizers or any other artist that's interested.
Hmm.
It shows the action of the
Mm. Nah, that's dope. That's dope for real. Um, why do you think why do you think stuff like resources like this are hidden? I feel like that's the perfect word for it. Why do you feel like stuff like this is hidden from people like us, like people that actually want to make a difference and push the culture forward?
I think when you talk about like keeping, I think it comes from a place of fear and
Mm.
scarcity. If you get some of this, then there'll be less of it from kind of mentality, um,
Okay.
which isn't true, right?
Right.
I think if we're practicing culture the way, for me, God has intended for us as Black people to do, um, we should break out of the patriarchy of what it is to have enough of something. um, and what it would look like if I share these resources with other people. Because I'm not colonizing the grant. You know what I'm saying? This is crazy for me to like come like Christopher Columbus this shit and be like, well, I discovered it. It's all mine. Like, no, this was before everything I do is an inheritance. It is something that I've acquired because someone else did work before me. Um, who am I not to share with other people? And I idea of scarce, fearful, um, thinking that they get to dictate who's deserving would become
Mm.
more evident where these resources are, and conversations would gravitate around them rather than it being something that's like locked in a vault.
Hmm.
But it's also, I think it's to take responsibility. We need to go out there and ask these questions. and we need to take accountability for how many times we knock on the door before we give up.
Mm. That's a great point, actually. Wow,
Yeah.
I didn't see that one coming.
Oh,
But no, you absolutely do. You absolutely do. Because it's a long journey, and if you've mentally committed to it,
yeah.
you have to go all the way.
Yeah.
You got to go all the way.
Yeah.
Shout out real quick to Biz the Don, King Jewel, and Be Fortune. These are all dope artists and creatives. Um, I'm glad they tuned in to get to take a look at you. You guys got to tap in with the Knot. He runs a dope platform monthly. Tap in with him. Get to see what that's about. Otherwise, stay tuned and keep watching. We'll get more into it. Um, so let's take it back to your arts for a little bit. Um, One thing that always fascinates me with poetry, you, you guys have, I don't want to say like a similar flow, every
Yeah.
poet, but it's like this thing you have with the setup of the word I. Like I can't really think of a huge example, but you know where I'm going with it. You know it. So yeah, but what is that about? Like I feel like that's such a powerful thing in the poetry world.
I like I said, this is an inheritance. There's not
Mm,
a poet as the other other communities outside of New York. You will find that there is a double ganger, like somebody who's similar to you, speaking of the same things.
mm,
And I think poets does really interesting work about most
mm,
times speak from a place of pride.
mm.
Really is general. I don't think like no one experience of one. Um,
Uh,
but I think there's a power to taking ownership of it, and but there is a cadence too that like it just it's continuous and pretty similar. Um, and I think that every poet you have uh, not voice poet, but also who you're writing.
mm,
And in those two things, you'll eventually find, but also you also find like your own perspective on why these issues or why these things can only be told by you from your perspective, rather than saying that it's cold as winter. Like
mhm.
I get it, it's cold, but how does it smell? How does it taste? What
Right.
like it lasts to remind like those. I, that's a memory that
Mm.
there, but you are great to take yourself there. If
Right.
that makes any.
No, no, no. I get that 100%. And another thing, you guys are the master of scenery. That's why I love poetry so much. The visualization of it. Like even going back to the whole poets seeking for validation, waiting for people to do the clicks or the claps or to be like, woo, that was tough. But for me, I be so roped in because I be trying to figure out when the hell did you figure out 50,000 ways to talk about time?
Right.
How did you create this whole new way to talk about your favorite food? In fact, I was just watching a clip of a poem
Yeah.
of this guy. He was describing he was describing Jack
Oh,
Daniels, but the way he chose to do it, I was like, man, why'd you have to do that? But when you look at the whole thing in retrospect, you're like, yo, he just took it and flipped it into a way that makes people talk about it.
right.
Because if he just went up there, yeah, I like to drink Jack Daniels and it makes me feel this way, people would be like, oh, yeah, me too, whatever. But but it's like the way he did it, even me, I'm like, oh, nah, this is suspect, man. But I like it because of the creativity. So how for yourself, would you say that it's hard or easy to create a way to talk about something?
I think um like about art,
Mm,
it's specific, but as a poet, you almost have to find a way to also invite people into it,
mm,
um, without them necessarily knowing who you are
mm,
completely. Um,
mm,
I think it is part. They're all like literary devices.
mhm,
Um, anything from like anaphora, like have I people, and that, uh,
mm,
I think for me, and the is that it is easy to invoke people of race, uh, but those lazy feelings, like my you talk these feelings nowhere. So
mm,
how can I think it's responsible for me as bring you into a problem or darkness and leave. Like I need to follow you with all providing solution way out. Because when I wrote that poem and where I'm at right now,
mm,
evidence that I healed, grown out of it. Um, but I think the creative part that comes with that people they need to make it about a way
mm,
that aligns not only the physical experience, spiritual one as well.
mm. That's dope. Um, no. See, this is all great answers, by the way, man. I feel like I wouldn't even say you was up all night trying to figure it out. I feel like you just went to sleep like, yeah, I got this.
No,
But
it all the time. I'll be listening to people like same thing. Like I'm like, what the fuck? What? How did you sit down and come up with this?
yo, for real, man. Um, so another thing I notice is that, and this is what amazes me about your ability to create things that make the listener visualize. You, you have, and this is general, by the way. Poets have a tendency to create every single day, or like every experience that happens. Boom, that's a poem.
Right.
So, is there pressure for that, or is that something that you guys learn, while learning how to do poetry?
I think collectively, if you got a room full of poets, you can you can gather that each of them the moment and decide to speak about what you.
Mm,
If you put it together, you put somebody's entire day. But um, creating every day, um, but I think the power that the poet has, you slow the moment down
mm,
to actually speak with engage. Um, most people, there's a girl in Italy. She has this poem about her grandmother, and one of them says, um, "I refuse, I refuse this poem to only be about like my grandmother's death."
mm,
That right? The girl that she amazing that continue to be blazed grass. I'm like, I've never looked at grass in that way. There's a poem by Felicia Cade, Rise Felicia, where she talks about um, this idea of like body, and it's like move child. Those are just two words put together, but when said a certain type of way, they will move you. Um, so many poets that I admire and look towards. It's I think it's the ability for us to slow something down, pinpoint it, so that we become as a community, as a people, as a collective, more conscious of how important it was lived in that moment. And because it
mm. So, have you ever have you ever felt like, how do I say, like called out or exposed through someone else's poem?
Absolutely.
Like, yeah, because I've seen it a couple times, like I'll go to a show, someone gets on stage, I'll talk about something, and I'm like, yo, this is really good. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like, hold on. Yo, that's tough. So
True.
and this is why I laugh so much at the poetry community because it's like you never know what anyone is going to talk about. Like it's different from music. And this is the thing. Like you guys can say a title and we'll start thinking, oh, okay, yeah, strawberry cookies, and then you just take us down a whole road of some other shit, and I'm like, ah. And then it'd be personal, and it'd be like, why is he talking about me using a title called strawberry cookies? Like, so this is just the whole throw-off value of it. Like,
I hear you.
but I think that's really, really dope that you guys do that for real. It's huge. It's inspiring for those that look at it, from a creative angle. So I have a very interesting question, and it's crazy because I feel like I kind of know the answer,
Yeah.
but I think it all depends on the person. So, musicians can be poets. Do you think poets can be musicians?
Yes.
Okay.
I think there's something about the musicality that like you're born with and I'm not. Like
Hmm.
there's practice and there's time that I have to put into things. But for example, when I introduced the live band to the open mic, a lot of poets are like, I've never thought about my poetry with music. And when you put two together, a lot of band would listen like what are the pauses in between your poetry that allow the music to live? And then what
Hmm.
brings in the things you're saying without you having to compete with it. Um, and these are all things that me as a poet never thought about.
Hmm.
But I think the more I do it, the more I realize that the music not only resonates within and the poetry, but it amplifies the message and the experience. You
Hmm.
guys, as musicians, you guys tapped into something where your voice isn't the only instrument on stage. And powerful. I think that to get an orchestra of things, whether it be a drum, a guitar, a DJ, like whatever it is, like all these things to synchronize in order to get the crowd to a place that you yourself need, but very for at that's powerful. I give musicians a lot of credit because I get stuck on like what comes first, music or work.
Yo, yo, man, it's usually a mixture of both, but I think it depends on your purpose.
Yeah.
At least for me, because I'm concept based, so a lot of the times I would need to know what I'm talking about before I even write the song.
Ooh.
And a lot of times it's really just I'll hear the music and they'll create the experience for me. They're just okay. This is what you've been through. This is what you need to talk about, and everything. Now, the tricky part of that really is coming up with the words because, some people are blessed, to create things that rhyme. Other people really have to think about it. And at least with me personally, my rhymes are not like hat, cat, mat. It's more like satisfactory to statusfactory. Like, like I'm trying to figure out words that match sentences,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
so things like it becomes a little challenge sometimes, and we definitely battle with that a lot. So I think that's also interesting how adding music to a poet amplifies their lines, yet
Right.
taking away music from a musician amplifies their lines because I realize I get a lot more love when I do spoken words, and I don't do them often. It's only because I started going to London, and I couldn't, for the life of me, find the music open mics when I first started going. I couldn't find anything, so I was like, you know what? Let me invade this community, and I just started asking people like, "Yo, y'all got a speaker or y'all got a DJ?" And everyone kept saying no. So I said, you know what? No one knows I rap. Let me just use one of these, and I thought it was a little too cheesy, and I'm not gonna lie because I get this a lot with some poets too. I feel like they're rhyming a little too hard rather than being creative.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they tend to pick up a little rapper flow too with it, like bouncing off a certain sound, you know. So I catch it and I'm like, ah man, not this again.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, so no disrespect to them by the way, but it's something that I deal with myself. So when it pops up with someone else, I'm just like, ah.
yeah, yeah.
But nah, it's definitely tricky to create something that will stick with people, especially when you're battling against instruments. So I think music artists should venture more into open mic spaces with poetry. You know, it teaches them to be more by themselves, stand alone, stand out. You know, so
When you
shout out to
perform,
you guys for always facing the world.
when you performed that One Love One Mic, you did the commas jump off, right?
Mhm.
And it was like that call and response isn't something that poets usually indulge in. They think
Right.
like gonna perform this, get off stage, and it's over. And I think you volunteer crowd and to saying, and then the ways that you definitely hit the different kind of commas, like I'm trying to get these commas, and then and it said, and I think it was the line when you said, "I'm coming from the commons," and it's like I could see where if I do an inflect, like if we say it together, it's almost like being in a room full of people praying. That
Mhm.
call and response makes the room resonate in a certain vibration, which is something most poets don't do, but they're trying to do more often now because of people like you, because you bring that space. They see call and response, the feedback hits them, um, which is
Mhm.
less about them performing alone and using an entire room to like actually engage with what you're saying. So like, I don't
Mhm.
think about it that way, but because a rapper came into the space, all of a sudden they're like, "Oh shit! Now you're breaking the glass ceiling. You thought was capable." So respect to you, not every
Thank you for that. I'm not gonna lie. I definitely utilize the space to the best of my advantage, you know, and this is why I commend intimate spaces so much because it's like I realized that everyone was listening,
yeah,
you know, so that's what really changed it for me for
yeah,
real.
yeah,
And then that's what also gave me the confidence and to keep promoting comics because I think I okay, I performed it at a showcase prior to that. So the way it lined up was perfect. I did it at the showcase, and then your event was, I think, a week later. And this was around the first time that I debuted the song. So the
yeah,
first time that I did it was in a showcase, and I didn't get that call to response. I believe I still have the
yeah,
video where I'm saying it, and like, you can hear like maybe one or two person in the crowd saying it, and that's how dead it was. You can just hear that it was one or
yeah,
two people. And then I had the video of me performing it there at Savannah, and everyone is saying it. So I'm like, yo, like what? What? This is dope, you
yeah.
know. So yeah, no, I definitely every time, you know, I try to utilize that for sure. Anytime that I'm around a crowd and I know that they're listening, I'm gonna do it. Also, plot twist.
Talk to me.
I learned call to action from poets.
Get out of here.
Believe it or not, yes, I did.
Oh shit.
Th-
Okay.
th- there's a few poets. Um, I forgot this one dude's name, and I met them in London too, by the way. So I mean, a lot of people hear me reference London. That's because I meet a lot of dope talent out there,
Hey, I
you know. So
think
there was this one guy out there. I really forget his name. Uh, uh, Nomadic Liba. Sorry, I don't know how I forgot. That's one of the homies.
no, no.
His name is Nomadic Liba.
Okay, okay.
He does freeform poetry. So he goes in there and he doesn't have any clue or idea what he's going to talk about. He just creates on the spot.
God,
And he has this thing where he goes, you know, all right, guys, I'm going to talk about this. Is this okay with Sean? And, you know, the crowd, okay, yeah, this is great. And then he'll dive into it and then he'll ask him another question and then he'll dive back into it. And it's like, yo, it's so crazy how he'll create an entire poem just based off of reading the room.
yeah, yeah.
And
Oh, just
I think that's really dope, man. Like just being able to control a crowd, like it's sick.
I
It's
think
sick.
I was just looking back at your feature. at One Love One Mic,
Mhm.
and you did that heavy, and I think the beautiful thing of having them both together is that like we don't have to limit ourselves, or we talked about gatekeeping in the past, and it's like poetry doesn't have to be this one kind of thing. I
Mhm.
think the poetry could become the feeling in the room, the impact that you make, but most of all is the creative ability for people to reflect what they themselves are feeling onto a crowd of people and back. And that definition can be applied to hip hop. That definition
Mhm.
can be applied to like a freestyler. That definition can be applied to a pastor in church. Like the power of the word is what we're focusing on.
Yeah.
Um, how that word is delivered has no. What was that? There's a comedian that says that, religion be fighting over who's the messenger, but like,
I like that one.
I,
Yo, and that hits home. That hits home for me.
yeah, I was like, what? I was like, this shit crazy, but like, did you get the message? Like, yeah,
That hits. All right. So, I think I got like maybe one or two more questions, and then I'm gonna open the floor for you. Um, what is your favorite style of poem to write?
oh, personas, personification.
Mm.
It's like it's a little, and then this thing called anthropomorphism, which is
Okay.
like the ability to get both of them pretty much give human attributes to inanimate things. So like I pretend to be a table, or anthropomorphism, where it's like I pretend to be somebody else together. Um, I say that because it's taking the time to embody somebody else's pain, somebody else's struggle, their joy, their happiness, their success, their peaks and their valleys. Um, Trying to understand the nuance of what makes this human being tick
Mm.
and think the way they do because of their experience. Not it's my guy at a
Mm.
workshop comes to like teach about empathy. The idea is that where they're coming from, but you do
Mm.
recognize that this feeling is far. Everyone has everyone has felt, everyone has felt betrayal. Doesn't have to be their context, but the empathy comes from the fact that you've also experienced this, so
Yep.
they make room for them and their own feelings. If that makes sense.
No, that's a great depiction of it, actually. There's a word for that, right? Vantage point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Uh, that's actually dope. You know how you explained it and broke it down. So it's crazy, And I feel like I'm a people watcher,
yeah,
and like not in a creepy way, because a lot of people do that in the creepiest ways, and that's so weird to me. But for me, I just enjoy understanding that people are alive just like me. People think just like me. They feel, everything. And it's like I think what really started it for me was looking out the window. Just living on the top floor. I used to always live in a building. Like right now, I live in a building. So I always looking outside and just seeing the people below me, just walking by, going about their life. I used to always be on the outside looking up at the buildings, like, yo, one day I'm gonna be on the top floor. Like things like that.
yeah,
Just offer perspective into things, and I think it's beautiful that you choose that style because,
yeah.
again, a lot of us don't really look at ourselves. We're looking at other people. So it brings that connection. Um,
There, I use it for the kids I teach. Like I teach at certain like certain facilities, certain high schools, and I come in to teach poetry. And it was one time I asked them to pretend to be somebody, and kids are
mm,
they so easily can pretend to be ADHD. Like it's automatic. But in reality, like it's impossible to be the homeless guy that's always lived on their corner.
right.
I don't need to say this like as a bad thing, but it's like, how can you find it hard to pretend to be something you see every day, and statistically, you're more likely to become one of him than a Jay-Z and Beyonce. So it's like, how do I bring you back to reality so that
Yeah.
you making decisions and start treating people humanely, um, and start seeing this like little shadow in the corner of your block as a human being. Um, but that's a it's hard to get kids to.
No, you're right about that. And man, I'm an uncle and I deal with it on a daily basis, man. Like it's and this is again why I hate trends as well. Like I hate that this fashion and trendy stuff is really poisoning everyone's mind because no one thinks about reality anymore. You know, everything is just, I want to do this, I want to do that, I'm gonna imitate this, and it's like, man, just look around you for a second, you know, wake up and smell the coffee. Like, you know, it took me a long time to really understand that
Yeah,
phrase until, you know, being an adult and understanding children. You know, I'm like, oh man, you guys really don't want to grow.
yeah,
Um, yeah, no, it's really deep out here nowadays, you know. And not only is it that they don't want to grow, they're not presented with enough opportunities to grow on a consistent basis. You know, like everything that we had before is being stripped away one by one, and yeah, it's just like it makes our job harder as the OGs. Because I'm pretty sure you find yourself asking, you know, what happened to the OGs? How come we don't look out for the younger generation no more? You know, so I take pride in sharing whatever I know. You
yeah.
know,
Um,
it feels good.
it is the like, um, where it's less about like how many times people probably told you like you remind me of like Malcolm or Martin, right? Or this Marley, and it's like,
Man.
like fucked up today, but it's like, nigga, like, can I intern under Martin Luther King right now? Can point me right nigga that's still breathing and doing the work to
Yeah.
apply for wherever he's at, so I can get real life experience about what it is to breathe this program and stay alive in it. Um, but it's crazy. Like you said, I think the legacy is like providing resources for people to open their minds to more than what's just to them all around. And I think our attention is
Nah, for real. Nah, that's
I just get
nah, nah, man. Thank you for that, man. For real. Um, all right. So we're gonna wrap it up in two sections. First, I would like to know if you have anything you want to share as far as a piece. Yeah, the floor is open, by the way. You don't have to rush through it or anything. You take your time with it.
um yeah, I can read something. Let me see. Uh, uh there was a persona piece that I wrote, being that I just spoke about how it's my favorite form of writing. Um and it's a poem I wrote about a homeless man in Brooklyn.
Mm,
Um and at first we met, serendipitous, like it's very serendipitous. Let's see if I can find it. Something. Hold up. I recently just submitted it for an MFA program that I'm trying to get into.
nice. I noticed that too. You involve yourself in a lot of other projects, you know, and I think that's really dope. And not just small projects, things that are like really, you know, shaping itself out to be like a new direction or um, just a higher level, you know, of challenge.
I miss being a student most all the time. It's like
Mm.
it's always what I lean towards. My bad.
So, all good. Or definitely.
it's so this home I was um and he
Mhm.
I drop off my girlfriend because I was sitting and waiting for the train to leave. So he like watching the train leave and laughing. And I'm like, what you laughing at? And I think he was being nostalgic himself.
Mm,
So I remember one day I got frustrated because it was like a good back and forth banter kind of thing. Him being me
mm,
knew about love, and he told me a story about losing the love of his life in the winter.
mm,
Um, and I remember that shit like kind of broke me because I was like, I never thought this nigga of all people, a stranger, would teach me so much about myself. So this is the poem that came out of it, and this is me pretending to be him.
mm,
Um, she was the melody that my eyes remembered whenever my heart needed a bass to make. You see,
mm.
my baby used to feed me stories about her. Let me just do it off memory. It was the melody that my eyes remembered whenever my heart needed a bass to maintain. You see, baby stories about her journey while searching for me, like the time when she was a poet named Claire of the beauty of diamond dust, like the flawless pigmentation smeared across our face. But you see, my baby feared how the world spoke of broken like it's a bad thing. So she forced us into Exodus, a quilted kaleidoscope openly scattered across this city, flawless reflection of validation, charity, or rather, humanity feared to leave behind. But you see, I always knew that to you, we were the dark side of a crescent moon, a fading hole in the coming dawn. But ever since that dawn, where my baby smiled remained a waxing moon in the midday presence, an upstream life stagnant without the night embrace. Since the rapture of the bird, the whip of the sun, I have been starving on a lonely type thirst. And diagnosing your appraised madness correct, I stand the traffic clog in your society's veins. A brick that belongs to no foundation, thrown through the jade that has become your tunnel vision. Trying to find a bottled pulse that would fill this chest that's a cave, this cave that served as nothing less than a home when her embrace reminded me that we were far from homeless. It was we who prayed dreams that you would die so we could order produce. We who has survived more winters than the skyscraping tombstones that overshadowed us. We who found each other in a Harlem dumpster to the background of another black man's blues before a renaissance came and went. We shared a Gemini spine. A binary code of seasons and places, a love story that was not worth telling. Too much wild dirt, running dust, dandelion petals, and whiskey breath. Yet there I was, and there you go, unable to recognize this reflection. I've become a January exhale, an outline of your insides too vague to recognize. Flipping heartbreak at yellow checkered crows, screaming her story at the top of my lungs, but I could see it in your eyes. To you vultures disguised in penguin suits, I was not dead enough to come close yet. They were waiting, watching, recording on bated breath for thunder and lightning to beat and spray the flies away. You only wanted the parts of me that weren't rotten. You wanted flesh. You wanted me to beg, to show you the weakness of man. But instead, I kept asking for help and no one would tell me how the fuck you learn to love and let go all in one life. So I fell to the spark of justice that thunder and lightning kept in their index finger. A scarecrow with a bottle brain leaking issue and cursing the heat in my blood. Either my love, my only friend, frozen. It's a little long, but it's crazy. Yeah.
I ain't even care, man. I was into it.
Uh,
So my question now is, which I wanted to ask a little earlier. I think I got sidetracked. How the hell do y'all memorize long ass poems like this, man? Like, cause okay, is it like a song? You know, for us, for an artist, we probably gotta memorize like our ending lines, and that helps us remember the other lines. So, but for you guys, it's like you're telling a story. It's very descriptive. You're using certain words, so like, I- it's like, and then you have to maintain that same emotion every single time. So, how does that work for you? Is that like a level of rehearsing or muscle memory, or talk about that?
I think different people go about it different ways.
Hmm.
I think you're not wrong when you say like the feeling kind of dictates the memory. Um,
Hmm.
for me specifically, it's a lot of repetition. Like memorization is probably my weakest point. Um, I I like off the I like to be the poet that I wrote something, I'm done with it, the feeling is over, time to move on. Spoken word has kind of forced me to perform. Not say force, I mean like has gifted me the opportunity to be heard and seen.
Right.
Um, but memorization when it comes to these poems, it's almost like when you were a kid and you listen to like certain bars on 106 in Park. So it's like
Hmm.
I grab um
Only good ones know.
yeah, I'm like there's a line from Jay-Z, I forget what I was like, you know the type, loud as a motorbike, but with a busted grape in a fruit fight.
Yeah.
That one line because that's where 106 in Park only gave you shit in increments. They never gave you.
Yeah.
That's the only part I recorded, and I remember I'm just gonna repeat this stanza as long as possible till I get it. But yeah,
That's dope.
because
That's dope.
there's poets that um they have a talent to perform, and it's like they embody so much emotion. I completely exhausted, and I need a therapist after.
Mm. Nah, that was a powerful piece, man. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for receiving it. Yeah,
All right, so one thing we like to do on this platform is drop gems. We've definitely been doing that throughout the entire episode. So do you have anything final for the aspiring poets, for the musicians that may be looking to transfer into poetry a little more? Share what you think the world want to hear.
I think one thing with
Mm.
because everything like you don't provide something answer that's absolute for all situations.
Mm.
So I have to continue to interrogate like a reason and intent in order to fortify my spirit and why I'm doing the things I'm doing. And one thing that happens for me is that like I will always remain a poet even if nobody claps. Like it's
Mm.
so much about how people receive you, but what this art form or what you're trying to put out does for you.
Mm.
Um, you'll reach a point where other people will vibrate with your frequency, but throughout your journey, just recognize that the most important thing is that what this art does for you comes first. Um,
Mm.
and however you mentioned, like me doing other projects, it's all these things that I'm trying to do are with the intention of digging deeper into myself and then living that in a healthy, balanced way. Um, and that's about it. Like I wish everyone the fortitude and the bravery to continue to do the work, um, even if the results aren't evident right away.
Heavy. Heavy. Definitely stay focused, everybody. Don't give up, man. For real, for real. It's a long journey, and you never know when that day gonna come up. Word.
Bro,
Yo, man. Thank you for
thank you.
coming through, sharing your story. Thank you for spilling some gems. Thank you for just being the person you are, man. You don't even know it if people don't tell you enough, but you are a blessing, man. For real.
One love. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Reef. Period. Ever since I think you I think you embody so much of what artistry needs, and that's the way you listen to other people. I think it's so important. How you show up on a stage is so important. Um, Everything you're capable of doing, the way you opportunity. welcome people into them. Um, and I do this with love of art. Like I think always get to know, the more you grow. But everything you do and everything you talk about always puts people in a deeper state of mind, and I think that's so much more important than anything else. So I appreciate
Thank you, man. I appreciate that, man. We definitely aligning on the same levels
yeah,
here.
man. One love.
One
Thank,
love, man. And thanks for stopping by again.
one love. Thanks for everything. Stay blessed, everybody, and one love.
No doubt, man. Take it easy.
Thank you, Reese. Stay golden.
Appreciate it. Yeah. All right, guys. That's the end of the episode. That was very refreshing and uplifting. Donai is a really dope individual, and if you guys enjoyed the episode, I'd say go tap in with him, man. Go tap in with that man. Like I said, he got a lot going on for the community. He's for the people. You know, you saw it. I can't, I can't put it in words. You know, it was just in real time. So make sure you go tap in with that man and show him some love. Um, who we got? Oh, we got some new guests for the month of November, so stay tuned. I will be announcing them very, very, very soon. Appreciate you guys. This is going live with the MC. I'm your host, MC Reef. See y'all next time.